Hi everybody, I'm Dean Louton. Welcome to the third episode of the Louton Show. So today we'll be discussing This Day in History, a flash biography of Elis Marsalis, and 3 facts about Thomas Jefferson. Now, firstly, before we start the show, I want to just explain about the subscriber issue. I said if anybody subscribed, I'd give them a shout out in the podcast. Now, I'd love to, but thanks to YouTube, it doesn't let me see who subscribed. So we currently have 2 subscribers, and thank you to you both, but I can't give you a shout out. So here goes the show. This Day in History. On this day in history, Washington casted the first presidential veto. Now that became something that all presidents could do and have done. And at that time, it was a very controversial thing to do because nobody knew, it wasn't a very established country yet. And people thought, ooh, can the president just say no, But he did it, and therefore it was precedented. And if anything's precedented, people think it's okay. Yeah. And for those of you who don't know what a presidential veto is, when Congress or people, want to get a bill passed, a president can approve it or disapprove it, and they're given 10 days. So a veto is when you go no, and then it can't go any further. Whereas if you approve it, then it can go further. So that's what a presidential veto is, and George Washington did the first one on April 5th. Okay, moving on. Flash biography of Elis Marsalis. He was the son of a businessman and a civil rights activist. He was a talented jazz pianist, and that's why he's famous. If you didn't know quite who he was or anything, he was a talented jazz pianist, and if you haven't listened to him, pause this video and go listen to him right now. He is very good. For those of you who like jazz, not me. I didn't like jazz, but his music, his piano jazz was very, very good. So that's Elis Marsalis. He was a talented jazz pianist. He came to fame in the 80s and 90s when he began being the patriarch of a performing musical family. And that's kind of what got him famous. And another thing was one of his sons said in an interview, Elis Marsalis was the type of guy who led a very, very principled and grounded life, and he always taught how you hold yourself up in a situation which applies to on stage. So when his family were performing, he drilled into their brains how to behave, and that kept them grounded and good, and they could perform well on stage. So that was a very important thing about him, was he knew how to teach his family to be good in life and on stage, which is partly why people would give him a second thought, why people would say maybe they would go to that concert that he and his family would perform. So that was an important thing. He then died on April 1st, and people all over the country, jazz lovers all over the country, are still mourning. There's a difference between and is moaning and is mourning. So the country's mourning. They're crying for him, and he died of COVID-19, which is our current enemy right now. And that's literally how the British people on be like, oh, COVID-19. So yeah, that I always get a tickle out of that because it's funny, Americans don't talk that way. COVID-19. So he died of that, and it'll take everybody in America who likes jazz and loved him some time to get over. Okay, moving on to 3 facts about Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson loved vanilla ice cream, and if you don't, I want you to stop listening to this podcast right now because there's something messed up, either in your taste buds or in your brain. I don't know but anyway, I don't know about you, but I love vanilla ice cream, and I think most people do. And if you don't, there's something wrong. There's something seriously wrong. So he loved that. Number 2, he was a talented architect and designed many buildings, some of which got built, including universities. There's a university in Pennsylvania, which he built. So he was a talented architect. And number 3, he died in debt. So, I guess during those last few years at Monticello, he lived a very, very depressed. He was a depressive kind of a guy. And I think he lived a very, very depressed kind of a life in his later years after presidency. And I guess he just kind of didn't have any money. He just kind of lost all drive. And he didn't have any money, so he had to be in debt and get money loaned to him, and then he just fell over and died one day. And then his family and his people who took care of his estate had to sell. He had many, many thousands of books, and people taking care of his estate had to sell those books to get him out of debt, get this dead man out of debt to pay back the people who he'd had money loaned from. So, yeah, pay back the loan sharks, basically. So, yeah, that brings us to the end of our show for today. And if you liked it, hit that little red subscribe button and that bell next to the subscribe button so you're the first to know about the Louton Show's new episodes. So do that. And then also Twitter, give me a follow on Twitter. I'm at The Real Louton on Twitter. And tell your friends. They'll love my tweets and my podcasts. So, yeah, that's Twitter. Also, if you want to see this movement keep going, you can always go to www.patreon.com/The Louton Show and donate, and then the movement will keep going, the podcast. So I really hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you next week, people. Bye!